morning. I had the good fortune this past 8 weeks to take a class here called Self-Mastery. And for any of you that have taken it, you know what that journey's like. And for those of you that haven't, I really highly suggest that you do, because what this place is transformative, and the classes that are taught here do just that. And so for any class you take here, you have to do a little project at the end. And so for this one, I chose to write a song. So this is a step out for me because I've never done this before. So since this place is about expanding yourself and understanding who you are and standing in your truth and your authenticity, what I think it really comes down for a lot of us is just making the choice to do that. And that's a big word in my life, is choice. And so what I like to think about this song is that it's really 3 affirmations that are really important to me. And I just put them together, and Andrew graciously put some music to it. So hopefully one of these, or maybe all these, will speak to you in some way and grow you as well. I am ready to accept what I know. I'm ready to release and let go of whatever holds me back. I am ready, no more struggle and strife. I'm ready to live my life. I am ready to let go. I am ready to unleash my soul. I am ready to surrender and be whole and free me from my past. Well, I am ready, no more doubt inside. I am ready, fear passes me by. I am ready to be whole. I am ready to live my life anew. I am ready to claim what is true, that God and I are one. I am ready, all is possible for me. I am ready, I'll just let it be. I am ready to claim it's true. Now are you ready to accept what you know? Are you ready to release and let go of whatever is holding you back? Are you ready to be who you're meant to be? Are you ready? Let your soul be free. Are you ready to let go? I am ready. Are you ready? Let's be ready. And so it is.
So that was the original worldwide debut of Chuck Roundtree's new song. Whew, some of us are born ready. Actually, the truth is, we're all born ready. We're all born knowing who we are. And then somewhere along the line, stuff happens and we forget. I want to share my favorite Fulgham story. Because it reminds me of where each and every one of us started. Giants, Wizards, and Dwarfs was the game to play. Now, being left in charge of 80 children 7 to 10 years old while their parents are off doing parenty things, I mustered my troops in the church social hall and explained the game. It's a large-scale version of rock, paper, and scissors and involves some intellectual decision-making. But the real purpose of the game is to make a lot of noise and run around chasing people until nobody knows which side you're on or who has won. Now, organizing a room full of wired-up grade schoolers into 2 teams, explaining the rudiments of the game, achieving consensus on group identity, all this is no mean accomplishment. But we did it with the right goodwill and were ready to go. The excitement of the chase had reached a critical mass, and I yelled out, "You have to decide now which you are, a giant, a wizard, or a dwarf." While the groups huddled in frenzied, whispered consultation, a tug came at my pants leg. A small child stood there, looking up, and asks in a small, concerned voice, "Where do the mermaids stand?" Where do the mermaids stand? A long pause, a very long pause. "Where do the mermaids stand?" says I. Yes, you see, I am a mermaid." "There are no such thing as mermaids." "Oh, yes, there are. I am one." She did not relate to being a giant, a wizard, or a dwarf. She knew her category, mermaid, and was not about to leave the game and go over and stand against the wall where a loser would stand. She intended to participate wherever mermaids fit into the scheme of things, without giving up dignity or identity. She took it for granted there was a place for mermaids, and that I would know just where that was. Well, where do the mermaids stand? All the mermaids. All of us who feel different, who feel like we never fit the norm, and who do not accept the available boxes and pigeonholes. Answer that question, and you can build a school, a nation, or a world on it. What was my answer at the moment? Well, every once in a while I do say the right thing. The mermaid stands right here by the king of the sea, of course. Yes, right here by the king's fool, I thought to myself. So we stood there hand in hand, reviewing the troops of wizards and giants and dwarves as they roiled by in wild disarray. It is not true, by the way, that mermaids do not exist. I know at least one personally, for I have held her hand.
We all feel like mermaids sometimes. We know our place, we know who we are, and we don't want to be put in someone else's box. But sometimes we don't have the king of the sea there to see and to tell us that they see who we are. We seem to carry these things. We seem to carry these things. I'll demonstrate it in my hand, but this is the all of me. We seem to carry things that aren't the truth of us. We allow ourselves to believe what people are saying about us or what we say about ourselves, and these things that we are carrying actually aren't truly who we are. Now, the issue with that is if we carry too many of these things, there's no room to hold and to carry the truth of who we really are. There's no space for it. And so what we're here to do is to help provide a way to let go of, to release all these old stories, these mistruths, all these things that we've sort of dreamed up about ourselves or believed about ourselves, and to let our real light shine.
So the first sacred cow that we want to put on the barbecue is the sacred cow of shame and guilt. Now, we understand that this is simply a term, a phrase that we use, sacred cows. No cows were actually harmed in the making of this talk. The problem with shame and guilt is that we take messages that we've received about things that we have done wrong or inappropriately or unacceptably in our childhood. We take them and we accept them to mean not that we did something bad, but that we ourselves are bad. Sometimes even the message is conveyed that way. Sometimes we are told not just, well, that was a bad thing to do, but how could you? You're such a bad little girl or boy for having done that. And do you see, we conflate the action, the behavior, with the truth of who we are. And so we begin to feel as though there's something wrong with us. Brené Brown, in our book, Daring Greatly, she says this lovely quote: "Shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging." And so this then becomes that hidden secret that we have inside ourselves, that somehow we believe ourselves to be flawed and therefore that we are unworthy and we don't belong.
Yeah, this feels very familiar to me. From the moment I can remember memories, I actually did not feel connected to my mother. And as I grew from the wee little tugging on the pants to, 6, 7, 8, it just kept climbing. That disconnection was always present. Now I saw my friends, they seemed to be very close to their mother. So what I did is I took that on, that there must be something wrong with me. I must be really bad because I don't feel this deep connection to my mother. And I kept holding that, and that kept growing within me. And it outpictured all the way up through middle school, through junior high, through high school, and even beyond that. But luckily, at the age of about 18, I found out where that disconnection occurred, and it actually occurred before I even breathed my first breath. And so I found out that it actually had nothing to do with me. And so I had something to work on to help release those feelings that there must be. I am unworthy of being loved.
And you see, we get those messages from our family. Sometimes they're just out and out said, you're bad. But sometimes it's the subtle messages that aren't said out loud, but it is the way in which we are treated or the way in which people around us behave, whether that's at home or at school or with our families and friends. Now, one of the reasons why we're doing our media fast this month while we're reading the book Daring Greatly, and where our topic is, will the real you stand up? Because we get these messages not only in our own homes and not only in our schools, but we are bombarded with these messages in our media. Especially when you think about the advertising that goes on everywhere constantly. And in our advertising is designed to grow your sense of not enoughness. It is specifically designed to play on our feeling of unworthiness, our feeling of, well, I don't have something that I need to make myself complete, and our sense of wanting is forever activated. Now we couple that with what happens in our television shows. So when I think of the media fast, I don't necessarily think of Facebook. For me, the media fast is from TV especially. When we think of the movies and the nighttime soap operas that we watch and become addicted to, and we begin to talk about the characters as if they were real. And do you see what happens is those people, for that period of time that we're watching over and over and over again for weeks and months and years on end, are in our living room. And do you see our brain doesn't know the difference between a fictional and a real experience. And so we begin to take on those subliminal messages. This is how people behave. Or should you behave that way, this is what people are going to say about you behind your back. Or this is how it is out there in the world. And these subliminal messages that we're receiving, we don't even recognize that that's beginning to lodge in our consciousness, and we absorb those. And now we are seeking to do things to fill us up or make us feel okay. Even more, what should we say? Even more below the level of our own conscious reality are those times when we have the radio and or the television on in the background. How many of us have the radio or the TV on in the background because we don't want to be alone, we don't like the silence, we want to feel like there's somebody in the house. And what we don't realize is that those messages are bypassing our consciousness entirely and are going directly into our subconscious mind, activating and continuing to fortify these notions of I'm not worthy, I'm flawed, I need that latest mascara or that new car or that hunky person, that hunky guy, so that I'll all of a sudden be okay. So that's why, when we say about the real you stand up, that's why we've coupled our media fast with this. Because all of those messages are veiling the truth of who we are.
Yeah, and as we continue to hear these messages, again, subconsciously or not, what starts to happen is it creates this other sacred cow that we really want to throw on the Barbie. And it's negative self-talk. So I don't know about you guys, but I have some negative self-talk. And it's this constant grind within our own selves that says, oh my God, what you just said was stupid. Why did you say that? Oh my gosh, why did you wear that outfit? Whatever it is, and call it a gremlin or whatever it is, it can be incessant and not shut up. And it's that negative self-talk. Now, the other one is the coulda, woulda, shouldas. And this is something that my dad and I have had privately. We joke about, like, he talks about, I got to get these sacred cows out of my pasture. Could've, C-O, would've, W-S, should've, cows. Got it? Could've, should. No one else got it, but
I didn't get it either. I couldn't figure out what we were doing with sacred cows.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda. And it's I could have, said something a little more funny, or I should have, gone to that party last night, but oh no, I was a sap and stayed home. I mean, it's all this self-criticism, self-berating, self-negative talk. Now, Ernest Holmes does a really great job of sharing with us about this kind of self-beratement. He deciphers the prodigal son story in many different ways, and this is one way that he brings this story forward. He says, in the prodigal son story, when he decides to return home and says, quote, I am not worthy to sit at the table, I'll just ask to be one of the servants. What this represents is a theological state of mind which is quite common to all of us, one of self-condemnation and personal distrust. It is morbid and detrimental to our welfare. A theological state of introspective morbidity which might be classed as one of our worst mental diseases. Self-condemnation is always destructive and should never be indulged in by anyone. It is always a mistake.
Amen. Yeah, and yet so many of us, we have really cultivated this. We've taken what we've heard and we've internalized it, and we begin to say it to ourselves. And I can remember many years ago when I first got into this philosophy and really, really started to practice this this kind of positive spirituality. And somebody said to me, they were listening to me talk, and I had had one of those days, who knows what it was, and oh, God, I can't believe I'm so stupid. I cannot believe I did that. Why did you do that? And I can hardly even represent how toxic it was, because I'm grateful to say I don't do it anymore. But I had a friend of mine who said to me that day, Petra, would you speak to your best friend like that? I said, no. She said, is there actually anybody else in your life that you speak to that way? No, my mother taught me to be kind, and if you can't say something kind, don't say something at all. And I had been practicing that from a spiritual point of view about others. I don't call people names. I don't run them down. When I work on saying if something's going on with me, I statements and owning my own feelings and all of that, except for when it came to me. And that was the day that I began saying to myself, wait, if you were your own best friend, would you say this to yourself? So stop. And that became my litany. If I were my own best friend, would I keep saying these things to myself? And I began to stop that kind of negative self-talk to the point where I actually don't ever do that anymore today.
So yeah, this negative self-talk and taking up the practice, if we all take up the practice that Petra took up many years ago, it leads to a true sense of wholeness, of self-worth. And what Holmes says is self-confidence and courage, and we've been speaking about this all month. Self-confidence and courage go hand in hand with real worth and are but the declarations of our wholeness. So as we are courageous enough to declare our self-worth within our own self and to declare our wholeness, then we are becoming that declaration of who we truly are. We're standing up to who we truly are, and that is our wholeness, that we are worthy to be loved and to love. Instead of self-criticism, maybe it's time to move towards self-compassion. I was recently reading something that if you place your hand on your heart, just place your hand on your heart, and you begin to say soft whisperings of love, things like, you're really terrific, or I think you're magnificent. Just try one or two right now. Just do that. Just real soft, no one can hear you. Let's hear the murmur.
I think I'm magnificent.
So by saying kind things to yourself in a soft voice, especially when you're alone, no one's going to hear. What it actually does is it reduces your cortisol levels. That reduces your stress. Mm-hmm. To reduce your cortisol levels, and it releases oxytocin and opiates. It's a great drug. So remember, when the self-talk comes, and perhaps you say, would I even say that to my best friend? Mm-hmm. Just take a moment and put your hand on your heart and say it in a soft voice. Yeah, I think you're magnificent, or whatever.
One of the reasons why we don't do this and we don't say these things to ourselves is another sacred cow. I actually find this more challenging to do. I'm not one to do an atta-girl to myself or to, do any of those things because of this sacred cow which I am steeped in, and it is the sacred cow of perfectionism. So we want to uncover the lie of perfectionism. This is a huge sacred cow that we live under. And it is the belief that if I control everything and am perfect, then you won't see that part of me that I think is flawed. I'm going to razzle-dazzle you with how great everything is and how perfectly I do everything so that you won't see the one behind the curtain that isn't. And it's not that the one behind the curtain isn't, it's that I believe she isn't, right? Now, the other thing that's the lie about perfectionism is, and this is, I think, sometimes we don't realize that, is that the ultimate extreme of perfectionism is procrastination. The ultimate extreme of perfectionism. Perfectionism is I have to do everything perfect, and I have to keep having to do it over and over and over again until it's perfect, and it's never, and it's that, that 2-hour job that we spend 12 hours doing so that it's absolutely perfect in every way, shape, or form. The procrastinator is so convinced that it will never be perfect that they never start. So you may think procrastination means you're lazy or don't care, blah, 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 or you may think that of somebody else who's a procrastinator. The truth is that is the most ubiquitous form of perfectionism, because it's never going to be good enough, is it? No matter what I do, it's never going to be good enough, so why even start? Why even try? Now, I grew up with the not good enough message. It was drummed into me in many, many different ways. Probably the most obvious and most significant way is out of the straight A's that I would get, and report card after report card after report card. Every once in a while, there would be a B on there. And that's what we would talk about. Why is there a B? What happened there? What's the matter? What did you do wrong? What'd you forget? Not all the over and over and over and over A's. When I left university, as you may know, after my first year, I think I've told the story, I left university and I came to Science Mind and cleaned my life up, and I decided that I was going to become a minister. I felt really called to that in my life, and I wanted to go to school for that. And somehow in conversation, talking to my dad, he had footed the bill for that first abortive year of university. And I wasn't asking him to do anything. I just was sharing with him that I was planning on going to ministerial school. And my dad said, "Wow, that's so interesting." He said, I think if you would become a lawyer, I think you would be an amazing lawyer. I think you would be so great at being a lawyer. And if you decided to become a lawyer, I would pay not only for your schooling all the way through, I'd pay all your living expenses. But if you're going to become a minister, don't count on me for a dime. So I put myself through school, working full-time and going to school full-time, because my dream wasn't good enough. And how many of us have let go of our dreams because they weren't good enough in somebody else's eyes? So one of the things that I had to learn things that I really learned was good enough. Actually, that's what that means. It's good enough. And if I showed up and did my best, now this is not for sloughing or shirking, but if I really showed up and did my best and I failed, or it didn't work out the way that I expected, or I was a little disappointed in myself in the way that I showed up, or any of those things, if I knew that I had really done my best, then by God, it was good enough. And learning to say that to myself over and over and over again. No, really, actually, Petra, you did your best. And your best is good enough, because the truth is, it's Spirit showing up as you, as me. It's Spirit showing up as me, and therefore it can only be good enough. It can't be anything less than that. That began to heal those messages of it's never good enough. Now, in this fabulous book that we've been talking about, Daring Greatly, it's so interesting that this particular quote, Brené Brown is actually quoting a book that we're going to use later in the year, The Happiness Project. And this is Gretchen Rubin, and she has this great book called The Happiness Project, which I think we're going to use in July or August. I can't remember exactly which. And so in this book, The Happiness Project, she says this: I remind myself, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. This is cribbed from Voltaire. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. A 20-minute walk that I do is better than a 4-mile run that I don't do. The imperfect book that gets published is better than the perfect book that never leaves my computer. The dinner party of takeout Chinese food is better than the elegant dinner that I never host. Do you see? That's what good enough means, is it's actually good enough, and therefore worthwhile as an expression of the truth of who we are. So these are all the things that stand between us and being holy ourselves and letting our light shine. These are the sacred cows that we'd invite you to put on the barbecue tomorrow on Memorial Day as you have those barbecues. And even in the rain, to just begin to release these and let them go. The reason this is so important from a spiritual point of view is I want to read to you something that Ernest Holmes writes about the truth of our light and who we really are. He says this: back of all manifestation must be the desire to create, the urge to express. This is called the divine urge, and it produces energy. Desire fathers energy for creative purposes and utilizes power to express itself. So dynamic is this urge that it will cause a little seed to break open the most solid earth in order to express itself in the form of a plant. It is the coming forth of spirit into expression, the loosing of energy into action. This divine urge is strong in us and constantly causes us to seek form for our own self-expression. And unless it becomes expressed, it will congest and cause conflict within the mentality, often known as depression. Fear must be removed. People often become seething cauldrons within because of inhibited action. Energy must find an outlet.
Yeah, I actually know about that depression and also faced that for decades of my life, because what I didn't realize is I was turning that inward. That energy that wanted to be expressed, I was turning that inward onto me. And the way that energy finds an outlet is through love. And to begin to, what I've discovered in this past year or so is to allow that self-love to be that outlet, to allow that energy to flow out. And one of my favorite quotes of all time of Maya Angelou's is, "Love liberates." And I carry that quote within me. Love liberates. It doesn't criticize. It doesn't, send that back into I am bad or I am unworthy. It liberates. It lets it go. And one of the memories that I have of this seething cauldron that I was creating within my own self is when I actually decided that I wanted to share with someone what I needed and wanted. Now, understand, or not, that for me, that is a challenging thing to do at times. And so I remember this because it took the courage to say, this is what I need, this is what I want. It didn't matter what the response of the other person was at the time. What happened, though, is immediately upon getting that response, like, okay, immediately upon getting that response, for the first time, I became aware of what I started doing. I started taking that energy and I turned it onto me. And I was like, oh, well, I just didn't say that right. Or I shouldn't have brought that up in the first place. Who am I to say what I want? Now, that probably happened countless times in my life. But this time it was different because I was aware that I was doing it. And when I became aware that I was doing that to myself, I actually then became angry with myself for turning that within me. So I got all of this energy that was not being released. I was not loving myself in that moment, and it all became this seething cauldron, as Holmes states, and I couldn't get out of it for hours. and for hours. But on this particular day, in this particular incident, because I had the self-awareness of what I was doing, and I wasn't willing to let it stay trapped in my body anymore or to take on something, yet again, that wasn't the truth of who I am, I actually started talking to myself. Maybe in a soft voice. But it wasn't a soft, I was alone in a car, it doesn't matter.
But the point is, you didn't berate yourself.
I did not berate myself, and I started talking out loud to myself, and I got to be that witness for the first time that I said, I'm not going to hurt you this way anymore. I could just feel it relaxing. Love liberated me. By loving ourselves, it liberates us, and I felt that liberation. Yes, I'm not going to hurt you this way anymore. You're really okay. You didn't do anything wrong. You're so worthy. Let that light shine, right? You are so beautiful. And it got me to a point where I was so liberated that then I could do an affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment, that just made the day so magnificent. And I didn't hold on to those things that aren't the truth of us. I let it go, and I freed myself so that then I could start holding the things that are true of me, that I am beautiful, that I do love myself more than anything or anyone else, and that I can liberate myself through loving myself. And Spirit, all the time, loves us. All the time. There's no time or place or spot where Spirit does not love us. And Spirit all the time sings, you are so beautiful. So what I invite you, each of us, all of us to do, is to allow this voice as Spirit through Andrew to sing this song to you and for you to sing it to yourself.
So I invite you to go within.
You are so beautiful. To me, you are so beautiful. To me, can't you see? You're everything I hope for. You're everything I need. You are so beautiful. To me, such joy and happiness. You bring such joy and happiness. You bring like a dream. You're everything I hope for. You're everything I need.
invite you to stay within. Just invite you to stay in that space of listening to Spirit sing to you. This is the voice within your soul that sings and sings and sings. You are here to make manifest the glory of God, just exactly and precisely who you are. This is the very truth of your being and your purpose on this planet. And the way that you show up is enough. It's good enough because it is the very divine presence being you. So I'd like to invite Andrew to sing this song one more time, and I'd like you to put your hands over your heart. And I'd like for Andrew to sing this in the first person for us all.
I am so beautiful. To me, I am so beautiful. Yes, I am. To me, and I can see I am everything I hope for, and I'm everything I need. Yes, I am. I am so beautiful. To me.
And so we have joined our own voices with Spirit's, because it is one and the same voice. It is the divine presence living in, through, and as us, whole, perfect, and complete. The expression of love and life and joy and presence that is flowing through each and every one of us, throwing through all life, all beings everywhere. And we come here today to make manifest that glory of God, to make manifest the glory of the soul as only we ourselves can. And today we lift it up as beautiful, as whole, as holy ourselves. We release anything that veils that truth. We simply let it go for the lie that it is. Knowing that as we stand in who we are, that everything that we do is not only good enough, it is the radiant, joyous expression of life itself. You are so beautiful. You are so beautiful to life because you are the beauty of life made manifest. Let us hold that in our hearts this morning. And so we let it be. And so it is.
Amen.